So we are back with episode 3 of Bro Book Club.
It's about damn time.
About damn time. We've been absent for a while, trying to get us all together. What has been a challenge, but we are
Thanks, there's only two of us.
exactly. But we're gonna go over the subtle art of not giving a fuck, as we did David Goggins' book last time. We're gonna go into this. It's actually a fantastic Audible listen if you have a chance. It's been one of my favorite audiobooks to kind of re-listen to as well.
Yeah, no, I first read it probably 2 or 3 years ago. And then when somebody else brought it up, I was like, okay, it took me a little while to read it. But once I started getting into it, I was like, holy shit, this is like a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the outside. You see a lot of people going through shit like this all the time. And don't really know how to get out of things or what is going on in life or why.
Yeah.
But there are a few little things that this book talks about that could seriously drastically change somebody's life, in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. And I think at the core of it, as the name implies and the title implies, the subtle art of not giving a fuck is essentially about that with the bombardment of social media and everything that we're subjected to on a daily basis. There's so many things that we can care about and give a fuck about that are just so impractical to us bettering ourselves or living a fulfilled and happy life. With the invention of Instagram and being able to follow everyone's favorite people, we see these little snapshots of everyone's, best lives of people that they find cool. So they subconsciously kind of brings out we should be doing more or caring about this.
Right. Well, even before any of that came out, think about you turn 30, 35, and all of a sudden you're on this kick. You're like, how many fucks I have to give? 0.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's cool. But is that really what's going on? Is that really what dictates your life?
Yeah.
Is it just a facade of what you're saying, right? What are you really internalizing in terms of what do you actually fucking care about? What do you not care about? And what should you not care about? Right? Not necessarily complacency, one of the examples in there, probably get into it, but not really giving a shit about your life altogether, just I'm a loser, or...
Yeah, you can't be completely apathetic, which that's not the whole point of this book. The point of the book is really to kind of get down to the core of your belief system and care about the things that truly matter to you and stop caring about the things that have no importance to adding value to your life.
Right.
And, he kind of goes through that whole first part of the book, kind of going over how we are bombarded with all these images and things that we should care about. We should care about, what the Kardashians are doing, or we should care about...
Absolutely. It matters.
Or we should care about, what kind of car we drive, or what kind of care about, what kind of clothes we wear. And it kind of goes through all that and kind of brings it down to well, why do you care about that? You got to choose what to care about. So why not actually take a hard look at what you're caring about and go through that?
What was the first thing he talked about in the book? He talked about the first thing I started taking notes on was Disappointment Panda.
Yes, yeah.
That was the first. It's kind of funny. Throughout the book he does these little monologues of specific characters and what they represent in your life. And Disappointment Panda is basically just to extrapolate, it's kind of like Eeyore.
Yeah. Walking
around. And he's visiting everybody, and he's everybody has a little bit of Disappointment Panda inside of them. And some of the things that I actually took the notes on from this guy is, one, the importance of suffering. If you're not suffering, you don't have the ability to change your situation or make yourself better.
Yeah.
There's no growth, innovation, no change, no awareness that goes on if you don't suffer. So
suffering is necessary. I mean, it's our survival mechanism. If we're suffering, it forces us as humans, as mammals, as animals to adapt and put ourselves in a position of not suffering. So to suffer is to help us spur on motivation to growth and get out of that situation of suffering.
you know, and I was having this conversation. I have this conversation a lot with a lot of people actually. And you know, one thing I think as you get older, when you start to just have like problems that always seem like they're stacking up. And you know, one of the takeaways, you know, one of the other notes in here that I have is like everybody has problems, and the reality is, and I used to think about this too when I was young, right? If I didn't work and have any money per se, so like if I got a speeding ticket when I was like 16, I was like, damn, like I'm out $300.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit. And then like, you know, tires or gas or this, whatever. I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm just like giving away money and I can't stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Or like something bad happened and like, why is
like things happen in threes, you know?
Yeah, right.
You're just waiting for the last shoe to drop, you know?
Yeah. And I don't even know if that had any relevance to what I'm about to say. But, you know, the misadventures of Disappointment Panda, we all have problems. And the solutions to one problem lead to the creation of others. Problems just don't go away. They hopefully get better.
Yeah.
Hopefully problems become better problems.
Yeah, I was actually having this conversation with someone else the other day as well. Is you know, there's happiness or solving or you know going from right to wrong isn't like a mathematical 1 + 1 = 2. It's more like a 1 + 1 equals you a little bit short still that you're able to go through. You're never fully right. You never can fully comprehend everything that's going on. So as you go through these problems, you find a solution and you become a little less wrong than you were before. That you're able to create a new problem, which is a better problem. He kind of goes through this whole thing of, you know, like if you're, for me as a gym owner, if you're out of shape, your problem is to get in shape, you know, so you join a gym, then you created new problems because now you got to go to the gym and have the motivation to do the things at the gym to, you know, to fulfill that. But that's a better problem than it was than, you know, just being out of shape and trying to get into shape.
Or you go to the gym to get into shape, you get into shape. Now you go to the gym, and the problem is this is going to fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And it's not that you can't do it. You just have that. You just know, like, okay, what's inside of me, I'm just going to take it to the point where it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And that's going to suck for, like, you know, 10 minutes. And then, you know, you're done.
Exactly. So
different kind of problem.
It's a different kind of problem, but it's still a problem. It's a better problem to have. But, I mean, it's, you know, it's essentially we're all choosing what kind of problems and what kind of suffering we want to go with, which is kind of like where the Disappointment Panda comes in. I mean, he kind of like lays it out like this superhero, if you would go like door to door telling people like, you know, and I'm not going to imitate his voice, you know, but he does this whole little voice with it and says like, you know, your actual attempts at friendship are really just trying to, you know, appease or, you know, put yourself on a pedestal in front of these people. Like you're basically showing off and making these grand gestures to these people, and you're passing it off as friendship. And it's kind of like looking at these things that you're choosing to care about, and we're kind of giving you like the dirty little behind the curtain look at why you're truly caring about it. It doesn't matter. Like your point of caring about that is not fulfilling you to a life that you want. Like,
right. I'm trying to think of like the fucking superhero guy. There's just so many characters that you like lose track of too. But I think if I can recall it correctly, he's talking about like just to like play off of that, like your motivation behind doing things. Like why do you give a fuck like of having to buy certain things to go, you know, as a thing of to show as your friendship. And now, like I actually, you know, just having a conversation with somebody in my family recently about like, hey, why did you get this? Like, this is totally outside your capability right now. And you know, I kind of was laying into him a little bit and, you know, admitted like, oh yeah, okay, you know, I got it to impress so-and-so. And I'm like, why do you give a fuck about that, dude?
Yeah.
Like, you're just putting yourself into a hardship position for a brief moment of time to have like the spotlight and have like somebody presume that you're cool or presume that this or whatever the case might be, and you're just
Yeah,
screwing shit up.
His giving a fuck was essentially like, I want to impress this person, but like, why do you want to impress that person through like this material possession? You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. He kind of goes into the talk of Buddha.
I know, I totally jumped over that. I think he was talking about Buddha first.
Yeah, but I mean,
like, how did Buddha come to be?
Yeah, like, and he talks about this prince who, you know, was like kind of shielded off from the world. And he had all these riches and everything, and he just found no value in life because everything, like, he would always have to one up and one up and one up and one up because nothing had meaning. He didn't have to work for it.
Or he didn't know.
Exactly.
Like, his father kept him trapped inside the
walls of the
inside the palace, and he was like, what the hell's going on outside?
And I feel like that happens a lot, especially in this area with kids, you know, with some kids, not all, but
the concept there is exactly the same.
Exactly, where you know, you're just trying to give and give and give, and you want to give, and you want to, you know, do this because you want to give your kids the best life possible, but essentially they have no value to what that is, because if there's no suffering, there's no opposite side. You can't see the good without the bad.
Well, additionally too, like somebody who might be sheltered.
Yeah.
Right, because the prince that left was sheltered. Father didn't want him to see any hardship, didn't want him to see poverty, didn't, you know, always wanted to have money. And that kind of shelter atmosphere, I mean, if you know, my parents didn't shelter me at all. And I used to, like, fuck around with them. You know, they'd be like, oh, do you smoke weed? I'm like, every day I do, Mom. And she's like, what? Like, freaking out. It's so funny. But, like, no, like, you know, I didn't do that stuff as a kid. And, you know, if you don't, like, let your kids know, like, hey, there's, like, some shit out there that could, like, seriously impact you. Or here's how you handle this situation. Or here's how you handle this.
Or just letting themselves figuring out how to do that.
Yeah, you got to let them go out and make mistakes and fall in love and get their heart broken and, you know, get in trouble and, like, you know, unfortunately get a speeding ticket so they see how much it sucks to, like, lose money and make them pay for it, you know?
And so that was like kind of like the Buddha's next step, right? Like, he kind of like throws off all that stuff and like kind of goes out there and, you know, like just suffers and gives away all his possessions. And he soon found out, you know, as everyone finds out, suffering sucks.
He's like, it sucks. Yeah, this is fucking terrible.
Suffering for no reason is a really bad thing. Like, there's, I mean, if you don't have a reason to suffer through something, it sucks. Like, I mean, kind of like you were talking about earlier, like when you feel like everything's crashing down on you and you're suffering, you don't really have that purpose. It's like, yeah, this kind of sucks right now. But eventually you find this balance out. Like, yes, like you need suffering because when you go through suffering and you problem solve and you figure out how to go through those things with a purpose, then it brings ultimately happiness, because happiness only comes from being able to solve out your problems and live through, you know, the things that you're wanting to do. And
yeah, that's why he was talking, like, what do you want to suffer for, right?
Exactly.
So it's like there's like suffering. There's suffering for things that, like, consciously are out of your control, and choosing to suffer for the sake of suffering, thinking that, like, okay, like if I just put myself in a state of suffering, then, like, magically things are going to happen, right? Magically someone's going to give me money or someone's going to make my life better. But it's really like, okay, it's like I have the capability to go do X, Y, Z, or to attain that, whatever it is, either healthy lifestyle, nicer body, or a car, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, table the whole, like, reasons why you do it for a second and think, like, all right, what do I really want to suffer for? Do I want to suffer for that? And I say it all the time. People are like, oh, I want to get into shape, or oh, I want more money, or I want this. And then I'm like, okay, you know, at first glance, I'll take them for what they say.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I have no reason to think otherwise of that. But then you see their actions don't lead up to that.
But then it kind of goes back to, like, especially as like a gym owner, I have these conversations with people all the time, and they're like, well, I want to get in shape. I'm like, usually my first comment behind that is like, great, but why do you want to get in shape? Like, what is your why? What is your purpose? Like, why do you want to go ahead and do the suffering that it takes? I mean, it's a very enjoyable suffering, and it leads to something productive. But if you don't have a reason,
come to Shoebox Athletics. It's the most enjoyable suffering you'll ever have.
100%. But I mean, like, you know, if you don't have a reason to do that, like you're just going to get in that position and you're not going to know what to do. You won't be able to get yourself out of there. With that person, you know, that comes in here, yeah, you know, I want to make more money. Well, why do you want to make more money? Like, is it just so you can, you know, appease that neighbor with that new car, or do you generally have a reason for doing it that, you know, brings happiness to your life? And, you know, he kind of talks about, in the end, you know, that subtle art of not giving a fuck is actually a little misleading, because he really talks about once you dive into what you truly care about, you're gonna eventually suffer for it. And he kind of talks about, like, you know, if you're single, you know, you're gonna suffer because you're single and you don't have anyone and you're lonely. If you have someone, you're usually going to suffer because of the problems that, you know, cohabitating and dealing with another person brings into your life, and, you know, the hardships, you know, and the pleasures that go along with it, obviously. And it's not bad, but, you know, like you have those ups and downs, and you have to communicate, and you have to figure out how to do things together with that person. But you have problems on both sides. I would argue that one problem is a lot better to have than the other.
Yeah, it's like Warren Buffett versus a homeless guy. They both have money problems.
Yeah, exactly.
One is significantly better than the other.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because it's like, I think about, like, my life. I'm like, all right, what am I, like, most, like, I wouldn't say necessarily just happy, but, like, not stressed out, right? And not worried about, like, external shit. And it is really rings true that, like, happiness comes in the form of action, not just reading some top 10 article or, you know, some freaking book. Like, even this book,
yeah,
right? Read this book, and then mentally you're going to do it. But, like, no, it comes from action. It comes from taking intention and then actually doing it. Happiness comes from actually solving the problems, not avoiding them. And that is what a lot of people screw up on the daily.
Yeah.
Is they're like, how can I avoid problems? I'm like, you can't.
You can't avoid problems.
You have no control over that. You don't even know when dude, problems just fucking slap you across the face when you don't even expect it.
Yeah.
There's no way to avoid it. No way at all. And so get off of that, shift off of, like, trying to avoid it, and just figure out, like, how to solve certain things.
Yeah.
Right? And that will solve a lot of the problems that most people have.
I did this a lot when I was younger. You know, I kind of ran away from problems and thinking, like, oh, you know, like, they'll just go away. And you know, the unfortunate thing is, like,
right, that's how you fuck shit up. People fuck up happiness in one of two ways.
Yeah, exactly.
First one is
running away. Denial. You know, you deny that there's any problems, and, you know, no, if I just leave it over there, like, no, like, that doesn't happen. And the other. Yeah,
it's victimhood. Being a victim.
Yeah. So I mean, like, kind of goes into, like, this whole self-esteem piece of victimhood as well, and, like, you know, like, life is gonna have problems. Like, I had problems, and I didn't actually end up feeling good about myself until I faced those problems and kind of overcame those problems. Yeah. Because you know, if you just feel good about yourself and partying for no reason, I mean, it's all going to come crashing down on you.
I mean, I look at it this way too. You know, just the opposite side of that. It's like, all right, whatever. Like, sure, if you're cool with that and that's what you want to do, you know, if you're like the guy who's like a loser and he knew he was a loser and just didn't give a shit about it, but truly didn't give a shit. Yeah. Right. And, like, because even the guy who's talking about the book, he's like, yeah, this guy didn't become famous until he was like 60 years old, writing a book. And then all of a sudden he sold like 1 million copies of this book because it was, like, dark and nobody wanted to, you know, talk about it. But he honestly did not give a shit that anybody didn't like his shit. He just kept writing.
Yeah.
And
because like, that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he cared about. Like, he just wanted to write, continue writing. Like,
so do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy.
But it should make you happy.
Yeah, the thing, it should make you happy. But you also shouldn't change who you are necessarily for other people. You should be accountable about it, right? Yeah. So don't deny, like, oh, I'm not a loser, when you actually are a loser because of certain actions.
Yeah, but, like, there's a difference.
I have way more respect for people who actually own up to that shit.
I mean, there's the difference between denying that there's any problems existing versus denying, like, who you are, right? Like, you can be a certain way, and if you deny who you are, I mean, that's going to be a set of problems all on its own. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, who you are comes with its own set of problems, and as long as you're willing to, as we talked about, like suffer for those problems, you're good. Like essentially, you choose what you suffer for, right? So I mean, if that's what you want,
as long as you're not in denial about
for,
it, and you're not like trying to like be somebody or not, trying to prove something or not, I'm like, all right, whatever. Like you can't make everybody happy, so
there's no point.
But how do you embody that though? It's like the question. It's like I don't know. It's kind of like a thing for each individual person to like figure out.
Yeah, I mean, each person.
Does that turn off? No. Computer malfunction.
Yeah.
Did I just totally derail you?
No, you didn't totally derail me. Like, not at all.
There's just so many things to fucking talk about in this book.
Yeah.
The tyranny of exceptionalism. I mean, that's what you're kind of bringing up about, like Instagram, mass media, self-aggrandizing to compensate for something in a sense of entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
That whole piece right there was like, oh man, it's what chapter is that in? That's
that's kind of like with the self-esteem, the entitlement aspect of like people walking around with entitlement issues, and that's unfortunately something that we see in.
But it's a sneaky way though.
Yeah, a lot because you can hit entitlement from both sides, right?
Well, most people. So when he was talking about this, his definition of entitlement kind of threw me off because I was like, wow, okay, like I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
In terms of thinking entitlement of.
You always think of like entitlement. Entitled people are the people who think they have no problems, that they're above everyone else, and they're entitled to behave a certain way because they're better than everyone else.
But that's what they project.
Yeah, I mean that's what entitled people.
Right.
That's the typical kind of definition of who someone who is entitled is, right?
Yeah.
But he also flips it on the other side and says, well, like that one thing of like, I'm awesome and you suck. Yeah, that's an entitlement. But also there's the flip side of it. I suck and you're awesome. So that way I should be, have special treatment as well.
Right.
And
right.
That flipping of entitlement is like, well, yes, I get completely where he's coming from, that they feel entitled to something like someone else has. Like, well, you shouldn't have so much, so I should have some of that.
Yeah, I thought that was like super interesting, like the way the flip side of it, like oh, you're good, I'm bad, therefore like I should get some bit of like help or hand me down type of thing, but they're like self-suppressing themselves from the get-go, and it's interesting. I actually wrote that down, like feeling the need for more self-assurance and to feel like you matter. Whatever part of the spectrum you're on,
mm-hmm.
right? We have that spectrum of like good, whatever that you were just talking about. And it's crazy to like think like that.
I mean, and he kind of goes into like the whole bombardment of this entitlement that kind of creeps up on everyone. And the social media kind of like throws it in our face even more is, you either have these viral stories going about really bad things happening to someone, or really awesome things happening to someone. So both ends of these spectrums end up getting, put on pedestals, and they get all the news coverage, while the middle of the road doesn't get any play. You don't see the guy grinding, like 40 hours a day, working hard to, just provide a good life for his family. Like you don't follow that story. You follow, the Mark Zuckerberg story, or you follow, the martyrdom story about this person who lost everything and now is living on the streets.
Right.
Like you follow these two things, and both sides of those, like, oh, I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I should be treated special. Oh, I lost everything, on the streets. I should be, given something special to get me back on my feet, which I don't necessarily disagree with per se, but I mean, it's that whole thing of like, I deserve special treatment. And it kind of given my circumstances, and it flips on both sides, and we all let this creep in on ourselves too. Is like, I find myself catching myself. Oh man, what else can go wrong? Like, I deserve a break.
Right.
Well, no, I hope for a break, but I mean, I don't deserve a break.
Right.
Like, I'm not entitled to a break. I'm not entitled to, to be better than the next gym over than me. Like, I got to put in that work. And
yeah, the last part of that tyranny from exceptionalism part is like right? We're talking about like feeling more self-assurance. We're talking about like entitlement. Talking
Yeah.
about like, why me? Why don't I have what that person has? Like, why is my gym this way or that way? And it's like, dude, we're all gonna get dealt like different cards.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we all can't be pro athletes. Unfortunately, we all can't be like, we all can't be like a CrossFit Games athlete that then opens a gym and then automatically people flock to the fame of that, Like, that doesn't mean you can't be great. It doesn't mean you can't start stuff up and build it up to that. I
think David Goggins actually had a great way of saying it. Like when he did it, in his book, that we covered last time, is like everyone's floor and ceiling are different. However, your potential of your ceiling and potential of your floor, you probably don't know what that potential is.
Yeah, that could change. It could change.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, but unfortunately, a lot of the psychological problems that we have now as a society, and he talks about this, is that the availability of information.
Yeah.
Seeing thousands of people who potentially don't have the same problems that we do could potentially make us feel worthless and depressed. And that's the issue if you're like sliding through Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's like, hot guy, hot chick, abs, that.
I always try to like look at that with a grain of salt, right? Like the influencer in front of a jet, right? Like, well, yeah, like you probably paid $300 to just
to
rent the jet, take a picture in front of it or walking up the stairs of it. Like maybe you didn't go anywhere. Maybe you just went to your backyards and drank Corona in your backyard after that. Like you don't know the context between those pictures. So like, if you don't know the context, like there's no point in beating yourself up, like trying to.
Well, most people don't know the context of anyone else's life. Anyone else's life. And we even have, dude, we got
people close to us.
Yeah, we got people close to us. So I was like, damn, like I did not expect that. And it's like, shit, all right. It's kind of an opportunity to like reground yourself in either one, like, I don't know, spend more time to get to know the people.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of like making judgments. Not in a negative way though. It's just like, wow, okay.
But sometimes people make negative judgments.
Yeah,
like,
a lot of times people do, actually.
I mean, people make the judgments all the time. Like, I know a couple people who, like, are kind of a little bit more shyer and a little bit more standoffish just because they're introverted in nature. And people just think, oh, man, that dude's a douchebag. That dude's like, that girl's a bitch. Well, they're not. It's just they're just a little bit shyer and they're not that extroverted. So once you get to know them, they're really nice people and, like, they have big hearts, but I mean, they don't come off across that way because of one way or the other. And,
yeah, and we're so programmed, like, all right, this is how someone should act. This is how someone should show up, right? And it's like, it's so easy to see it.
Yeah.
It's so easy to see what other people have, what you don't have. Well, it's like, dude, no matter what, like, there's always going to be somebody that either, like, has more popularity than you, more money, more fame, more status. And it's truly when you stop giving a fuck about that shit that, like, you actually get pulled into, like, more prosperous opportunities. Because you're real.
Yeah.
Like, even like, rich people or famous people or whatever, or, like, people in certain, professions, right? If you talk to a cop or undercover cop or a firefighter, it's like, oh, man, like, hey, everyone wants to dig into the details.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they probably don't want to necessarily dig into the details, right? Because that's hard.
They compartmentalize that side.
Yeah, they just want to leave that somewhere else. So, but if you are a real person and you stop, like, trying to, like, either idolize somebody because of what they have, or
people are people.
People are people. Yeah, if you look at them like people, right. Even famous people, they all got problems.
Yeah.
You actually get pulled into that. You get pulled up. You get pulled into those conversations. You get pulled into those elite groups because you're real. But if you don't, who gives a shit? Fucking don't. Don't matter. Don't care. What is it? What's your hustle? What is your grind? What do you want to do? How do you want to be as a person? Like, you should be that person when no one's looking.
Exactly. And that's a great thing. So, like, how do you, like, get to that point? You're like, where, like, you choose to care about, like, or give a fuck about what you actually want to. Like, and he does a great job of kind of going through some things in here, and he talks about, when you're living in happiness, like, you're living in alignment with what your beliefs are. And he actually goes through here and he says, like, dude, there's some really shitty beliefs out there that you can do. If you're if your belief is just, you know, I want to get more money, more of this, more of
Rockstar
that, like,
problems.
yeah, like, you know, like you're gonna have a real tough time. However, if your personal values are like, well, I want to build, you know, sustainable relationships. I want to live with honesty and truth. I want to, you know, go through these things. Well, those are the problems that will eventually elevate you to kind of go through, and he goes through this.
The whole like jerking off your ego.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm not going to be special, or
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like handling all the messages that you see in life about, you know, how you can be great and everyone is exceptional. Not everyone's great. Not everyone's exceptional.
No, I mean,
But it tastes good. The harsh reality of the work you have to put in and the lack of self-entitlement, right? It's kind of like pulled everything full circle.
Yeah.
Is what drives people who believe that they are mediocre to become great.
Yeah.
And
in case like anyone got lost on that, they're saying like he kind of argues the fact great people that do great things tend to get there because they're driven to thinking that they're not that great. Right. So they work harder and harder and harder at that thing, and then they eventually just become great because they don't just like sit back and say, oh, I'm talented, like I'm the shit, things are just gonna happen. They're like, no, like I'm gonna keep driving because like there's someone out there that's more talented than me, and I need to outwork them. And I mean that's a great thing to kind of have that responsibility aspect and kind of that driving. Sorry, I derailed you, but
no, that's fine.
It's a bunch of derailing going on.
It all blends together. Like eventually in the book, like he gets to the 5 key points.
Yeah.
And I didn't write them down, so I can't recite them. But Rich did.
Yeah.
So he can bring them up. And like before we get into that, it's like one of the last aspects of it, prior to the book, getting into the 5 topics, is like our values determine the metrics by which we value ourselves and everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are your metrics, right? Are you even thinking about that? And that's like seriously when my life changed, is when and I didn't read like a self-help book to like get there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like by osmosis of like going through shit and thinking for years of understanding like, all right, these are my metrics. And if somebody doesn't fit inside that, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm not here to change anybody. I'm not here to even call them out. They probably won't even know that they don't fit into the metric.
Yeah, of course.
But I just won't spend time with them. I won't spend my energy there. And
it doesn't necessarily mean you're rude to them. It's just it just means like I'm just not going to pour my energy and
actually be super nice. They won't even know I have an issue because it's not even worth anything. It just matters to me, and that's all that needs to really matter.
Exactly.
And then we'll both go on living our lives perfectly fine, and nobody will ever even know about it. Won't even need to tell anybody about it.
Yeah, I mean, like keep going back to this disclaimer, like, you know, the subtle art of not giving a fuck doesn't mean like not having like apathy towards someone, or not, you know, like being rude to anyone or being rude to anything. It's more like if it comes in front of you, like I'll have, you know, hey, how you doing, blah blah.
Yeah,
but like in the end, like I'm not gonna go, you know, caring and, you know, and truly pouring myself into someone who doesn't reverberate that back to me or bring that back to me as well, that same energy. And that doesn't have to be the same thing, but like that same energy of caring.
And I also don't care to fucking call them out about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like
because it wouldn't necessarily change anything, because if I mattered that much to somebody, I wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm at a point now that I'm kind of like getting better, like at saying like, look, like I don't need to have, like you saying, walk up to someone and have this big discussion. Like if you generally don't fit, you know, within the framework of what I'm trying to do, that's okay.
Yeah,
like
totally
you do that. Like I might even, if I don't have a problem with doing it, it kind of aligns with my value, help you out. And I don't want to expect anything in return. I just want to be able to say like, hey, like I'll show up, and, you know, because that's what I want to do. And, you know, if you don't show up, that's okay. Like I got these things in line for me. But I mean, that kind of comes down to, like he says, like the values, having like shitty values or you know, values that are in line with your belief. And
right, the definition of good and bad values.
Exactly.
I didn't even write anything down on that. But all right, so the first topic he talks about is what? Choice.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Right? Like take. You are always choosing how you react to situations, and this is something
God.
like this is something like I have so many conversations with people like on and
This is why people get mad at me when I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
Multiple times, or like I'm getting into the flow of like
Yeah.
these conversations, and they're like, "No, keep going. I want to hear." I'm like, "All right, let me just preface this real quick. You're probably going to be pissed off at me.
Yeah.
I just want to preface that
Yeah.
real quick." And they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because like I'm about to like, no matter what you say about the issues you have, I'm going to tell you that it's going to come back to you. So go ahead and try to prove me wrong right now, you know?" And that's like choice. Responsibility, taking
like,
accountability.
Yeah. Like he kind of goes into this, you know, he outlines first, you know, the difference between fault and responsibility, right? Like although something might not be your fault, something happens to you, it's not your fault. But that's in the past. Like, I mean, you might be going through the pain of it currently, and you know, like we all go through that. But responsibility is taking command of the present and saying like, well, that happened in the past and I can't do anything about that now. I'm in the present and I got to work on how I view it and what I'm going to do going forward from this point on. So like something bad can really happen for you, but you need to take responsibility about getting to the other side of that. Like, and
yeah, no one's going to do it for you.
no,
And dude, we can't avoid issues in life.
No.
We can't avoid problems in life. And that is one thing you can't control. I mean, you could control how you perceive certain things, right? If you have complete apathy to the world,
yeah,
then nothing fucking matters, right? Then nothing bothers you.
yeah. But
You're
that's
just like,
that's a psychopath. Like,
you're psychopathic at that point, right? So obviously, you know, the majority of people aren't that way.
yeah,
But taking, goddamn, sometimes it fucking sucks, man, to
Oh,
take
yeah.
accountability, to responsibility, and you just like want someone to rub your back and like, just tell you to be okay,
Right.
and then make the problem go away.
it's not your fault. It'll all go away.
Yeah.
Like, it'll all be good at the end. Well, no, like
This
that.
isn't judgment on you. It's like, well, okay, that's a whole different topic, but you know, yeah, like if you take accountability and take responsibility,
Yep.
then you're in control. But
Yep.
you have to be conscious of like the choices you're making and like be truly, you know, responsible for saying like, yeah, okay, this is a bad choice and this is what happened. If you own up to it, you know, then you're empowering yourself.
Yeah,
Then you're not giving away your power to somebody else, saying like, oh, well, I have no control. Like, well, shit, yeah, you might as well just go fucking lay in bed for the rest of your life and just wait for everyone to take everything from you, and eventually you'll be homeless.
exactly. Like, you know, like I'll kind of like bring up my own thing. Like, as things happen in my personal life, like, you know, good and bad, like I have to take responsibility for my actions as well as the actions that happen to me, you know, through everything. And then I need to become responsible for what my choice is and how I react to that going forward.
Right.
You know, like while I'm at fault for some things, I'm not at fault for others, and that's okay. Like, but how I view it and how I move on past that is my choice, and how I need to interpret it and what I care about. Like, I need to determine like, well, what do I want out of life? What do I need out of life? What like where do I want to go out of life? And then I need to direct that towards there and take responsibility for making those actions go through. Because as you said, like, you know, life happens when you solve problems. Well, if you take responsibility for your problems, now all of a sudden you're enabled to find a solution to get to the other side of that. Like, if it's just happening to you, well, now like it's in someone else's control. You know what goes on. And he has.
Yeah, what's interesting too is like you can go back to like taking extreme responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just got in an accident, hit by a car from behind.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, somebody else hit me, right? The extreme ownership aspect of that is like, well, I'm the fuck. I chose to get in the car today.
Yeah.
If you didn't get in the car today, you wouldn't have got hit. You know, like you can narrow back every decision super far back, and like a lot of people get pissed off like when you do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, my own personal issues. This. It's like, oh yeah, well, you didn't have to make that decision, which would have never put you in this position in the first place.
I
that's
would
extreme.
Yeah.
That's extreme, but that's still empowering you.
Yeah.
And the only goal of that is not to like put somebody down and not to like cast a negative like shadow over them, but it is just to empower them to say, hey, look, like no matter what, you still have control. Yeah, now you're in control.
Exactly.
Don't ever blame your issues, no matter what it is, on somebody else. Because you instantly you're helpless at that point.
Like he kind of goes into this like victimhood chic thing and how it's so like it's a fashion now to to be offended by something, and like it's someone else's fault.
Stand your ground.
Like it's someone else's fault that's happening, like, and I'll go a little like, jobs aren't around because these people are coming to the country. Well, no, that's probably not the case. Like, or or you can do a million different ways if you go into it, but like this whole like it's their fault. So like no, like yes, like but now it's not about whose fault it is. Like yes, like there's some things that happen, and the court of law, like you can go and you can take care of that to get some retribution for really heinous acts that happen out there that are really out of place. But it is ultimately your responsibility to move on from that point to go through, and if you just stay there in that point of just feeling and trying to find fault and being in that victimhood, that is a choice. Like you are choosing not to move on from that point in life and get to the other side. And and that's kind of the thing is like people always do that. Like failure to make a choice is still a choice. Like
right, yeah, not doing anything, you're still choosing to not do anything.
Exactly, and that gets to people a lot too when you kind of talk to them.
It totally does. So you almost have to like if you truly embody this type of like conversation and living, you almost have to like kind of turn it off a little bit. Yeah, you almost have to be aware. You're like, okay,
you gotta know your audience.
Is it really worth like pissing everybody off today? Yeah, or should I just like say la vie and not give a fuck about you? Right? Yeah, I guess that kind of like comes into play.
It kind of comes around to like. What you care about and do you give a fuck about that?
Is this a time where I want to give a fuck entirely and push people to the limit to where they piss me off?
So this is one of the things that he talks about within like good and bad values, right? One of those shitty values like he has kind of out there is like always being right. Like if you're always trying to be right, well that does nothing for you, right? Like you're like you're going to be arguing with fools all day, like or you're going to end up being a fool because there is no absolute certainty of anything, which we'll kind of get into next. So things are always adjusting. You're always moving from a little bit less wrong to even lesser wrong than that. But I mean, and that's kind of the second thing he says is like while you're trying to do
what's the title?
Uncertainty.
Right.
And he kind of puts there kind of the proverb, the man that knows everything learns nothing. Yeah. Right? Like if you are absolutely certain of something, like you can never learn. Like you can never open yourself up.
We should be in constant search for doubt.
Exactly. And he kind of argues that that's where you grow from is like if you're always so certain that your way is the right way,
you're never going to seek something out.
Yeah, you're never going to find the better way of doing things. Like it's kind of the people like I said, oh well, we've always done it like this, so this is the way that it's going to do. Well, okay, just because you've always done it that way doesn't necessarily mean there's not a better way to do things. That might have worked for them, but now with all these new technologies and all these new ideas and aspects coming through, like there might be a different, better way of attacking this situation.
We're pretty much always wrong.
Yeah,
and most people don't want to admit that. If you come to the realization that you're probably almost always wrong in what you're saying, unless we're talking about like factual stuff, like 2 + 2 doesn't equal stupid. Yeah, there's only one answer to that, unless you're doing Common Core math and they fuck that up.
Well, I actually love the quote that I used to believe my brain was the best organ in my body until I realized it was my brain telling me that. It's kind of one of these things, like, we pick up interpretations of things from our own biases, from our own perspectives, not from like a total like omnipresent, view of the world.
Right.
So like we can never really see all sides of everything. We're only picking up, one perspective, one slice of it. So how you framework everything around that, like you're seeing it from that one slice. You don't see everything else like that surrounds that same issue. So like,
right, having to be right and having those blinders on it really like limits. What's funny is that like a lot of people, they have like prejudices against certain people, or it's funny when the light bulb goes off, right? Because when somebody has enthusiasm for meeting somebody that's not necessarily in the demographic or socioeconomic class that they might be, whether it's higher or lower, whatever it is, and you see how like, oh my God, I can't believe I met you, like you're such an awesome person. It's like, where's that excitement coming from?
Yeah.
Is that some predisposition that you have, like thinking like, okay, this is how like all of these types of people are, and you're so like, that's that egotistical thing that like stops you from like just interacting with people in general or judging them from the outside, right? Thinking that you know how things are.
Yeah, like
potentially
because you're so certain of it, like you just you're like
they're so shocked.
Yeah,
they're so shocked that it's not how they believed it was.
Or like when people go up to that famous person and they always talk about it, and then they have like an actual conversation, and they were like, oh my goodness, you're such like a real person.
Right?
And it's like, well, what do you think? Like,
no, because we idolize them.
Yeah.
And I've never really been one to like sure, like I'm like, okay, famous people, that's cool, but it's not like I don't think about famous people at all actually until like I'm in LA or driving around, but even then it's like, even if I see somebody, I'm like, oh, that's cool, because realistically, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like the one thing that I probably would take more than anything, right, that I would actually get like super stoked about would be getting a baseball signed by Ken Griffey Jr. That would be like the one thing that I would be like super in awe, like taken back by, just because of how much like I wanted to be like him as a kid.
Yeah.
But like seeing other famous people, oh man, Griffey is just crazy. But seeing other famous people, like see famous people, maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Don't run up to them, because they're like, realistically, what is that going to do for you?
I mean, for me at least, it kind of goes back to like, I just don't care about that. Like, I just don't care about the gossip columns, or like, if I walked up to, I don't know, even a famous person off the top, like Kim Kardashian, right? If I were to see Kim Kardashian walking down the street, I'd be like, I don't really care. Like,
I would look. I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to see her.
I would take a second. I would probably take a second glance. It's like, is that him? Whatever. And like, but at the same time, like, there's no true benefit to my life by being like fawning over her, right? Like, there's nothing that person is doing that kind of relates to my life that I really invested in. But all
right, so I mean. But maybe if she didn't have all the cameras, maybe if there wasn't such a opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Right? Because what do you have to do in order to like stay up on that shit? You guys spend time watching it.
Yeah.
And like it's not motivating to you.
No.
To run out there.
Exactly. But that kind of gets me back to like what's important, and like it kind of goes like this too. This uncertainty thing, like everyone's certain about these certain way these people are, but they're also doing that to themselves all the time. Like I'm certain, he kind of goes into go through this tangent of, the person that doesn't ask for a raise or doesn't ask for time off is certain that the answer is going to be no, right?
Yeah.
So they never just ask for it. They don't put themselves out there to do that. And like, that's a damaging thing, because essentially they put themselves in this box, like, oh, I'm going to do this. And I kind of internalize this with myself is like, am I certain my gym is always going to be, 140 members, and that's all that it's going to be, and that's all that I'm going to do? No, like I have to branch out there and be like, look, like my business is going to be more than that. I don't know what it is. I'm not certain what it is going to be, but I'm certain that it's going to evolve from here. Like
Right.
I can't box myself. I had another conversation with someone, and you'll get on this one too. Is they've always been in this certain relationship, and this relationship was bad for them, and then someone good comes along, and they don't know how to react to it, and they end up talking to the person that was treating them bad before. And I was having this conversation with someone. They're like, I don't understand why they talk to that person. I'm like, because they're certain of how they are, of who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in this situation of like, well, this is what I deserve. This is who I am. These are the things, and they don't see themselves outside of that facet. And they're so certain of their circumstances that they can't see beyond that point where they're like, no, like, and they're like, well, why don't they see themselves ever? Because they've been programmed and conditioned to see themselves like this way for so long. So, you got to eventually break down that whole certainty thing. And that's the kind of whole thing, the dangerous side of being certain and always right,
Mm-hmm.
is that you never able to grow outside of that. Like,
Yeah. So that flows really good into like his don't trust your primitive brain.
right, exactly.
Like you don't know what a positive or what a negative experience is.
Yeah.
So if you take a relationship, for instance, like you were describing, it's like you've been conditioned over 2 or 3 years to slowly over time have like subconscious beliefs about like who you are, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that could be fictitious or fake based on how somebody else might be projecting on you, and you're internalizing it and feeling a certain way about yourself. And then you get to a point where you're like,
start believing.
yeah, you start believing it, but you're also like, God damn, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Right? How do I fix it? And then coming to the harsh reality sometimes that like sometimes you may just need to like fly alone.
Yeah.
You may just need to like end it. Right?
But and so when that happens though, it's still hard for people to get to the point of like when they do end up in a better position, a lot of people will self-sabotage themselves to bring them back. It's kind of like that whole rule of thumb, like a lot of people will say like, oh, everything's going great in my life. I wonder what the hell's going to go wrong. And then they
do it themselves.
And they basically sabotage themselves, right, to put themselves in a back position just so they can prove they're like, yep, you know what? I was right. Something was coming.
Yeah, right.
Something was going to come up, and something happens, and they end up self-sabotaging it.
Yeah.
Because they're so certain that they belong in this box.
They'd probably deny it and being a victim about it anyways. And
Oh yeah,
it's
100%. Like
I've never been one to like self-sabotage. I've always been one to like internalize pain and suffering, and it kind of talks about, it's like we don't even know what negative or positive experience is.
No.
Right? One bit of advice for anybody that's actually like still listening this long, for people that are going through like painful moments in their lives, like something that's fresh or whatever,
Yeah.
you should probably wait like 6 to 8 months to start offering like silver lining comments. That's like one thing that used to piss me off the most. Like, well, at least you didn't have this. I'm like, oh shit, that just makes everything so much better right now. My perspective has changed.
well, no, but I mean, like, the more you hear it, at least you're getting reinforced. Like yes, like you're going through a shitty time.
Maybe
but
it's
like,
just me.
like,
I'd rather someone be like, yeah, that fucking sucks. Like, you want me to get like a burger? Like, yeah, all right, and not talk.
I mean, that is honestly appreciated as well. It's like, you know what? That's a raw hand. Let's go and just play around and forget about it.
Let's not talk about it.
Let's not talk. Like, and eventually, like, you'll do this with kids as well. Like, if you're playing catch with a kid, right? Like, if you ask them how their day is, like initially, they may like, oh, day's fine. But you start playing catch with them, and all of a sudden they start kind of opening up. Right?
Yeah.
Like they start like talking about like, what's going on. Oh man, this Billy kid at school, yada yada yada. And it kind of the way thing is like you can't offer up and like be there for someone unless you're truly there for someone, and then you can kind of figure out what's going on.
Like you almost gotta ask a kid, like,
Yeah.
oh, then well, what do you think you should do?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Like definitely with kids, you definitely gotta make sure, like, hey, do you want advice right now, or do you just want me to listen?
But I mean, a lot of times you just need to be there to listen,
Right.
before anything happens. Because I mean, this whole thing of certainty too, as well as like maybe you're certain it's certain like the framework is like that, like one way, but then you learn it's completely different another way. You always got to be searching out the path of where you're wrong, because by searching out where you're wrong, you can end up getting to that next level of a little bit more right and a little bit more right.
Right.
It's that whole aspect of, and even with fitness, right? Like, when I first opened up my gym, I affiliated with CrossFit, and CrossFit was the world, and this is the right way, and this is the mecca of ways to going through. And then as I stayed into it, I'm like, well, I kind of like some of the things that bodybuilding people are doing. That's kind of cool. And well, I kind of like some of the things that these endurance people are doing. That's kind of cool. And like, I start piecing together, and I'm like, well, they're right about something right there, and they're right about something right there, and the CrossFit people are right about something right there. You can kind of look for all the rights and all the truths, and kind of start making your own process and making your own adaptation about what is best necessary for you or for the people that you're serving. Like,
right, yeah. And if you get so caught up in like that belief of like you said, when you first started CrossFit, let's follow what they're doing, or with anybody in like kind of any aspect of their life, it's like our brains are finding patterns where it's really not supposed to, and it obscures the reality, right? So like when someone first gets into something that they're gung-ho about, like they just want to tell everybody, oh, this is the greatest thing. They may say anybody else saying like, oh, your methodology is not going to work, and this is the only effective methodology that you should do it. But the reality is like nobody really knows anything.
No,
exactly. And what a lot of people don't understand is like it's in our favor to be agnostic about how to live life.
Yeah.
Right? And how to do certain things. And how you come to those conclusions, because, the one thing that I was kind of cracking me up, because I know people that like are on this side and they follow along with this, is like somebody like, all right, so uncertainty is great, right? Don't really know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, but does it freak me out? No.
So you got to plan for it. So like,
I'm still working towards solving what my perceived challenges are, problems are. I want.
So I love the quote from Alice in the Wonderland from the Chester Cat, right? Like Alice is going in there, and he talks to the Chester Cat, and the Chester Cat, she goes up to him and is like, "Can you tell me which way to go?" And the Chester Cat looks at her and says, well, where do you want to get to? And, she's like, well, I don't know. Anywhere is fine. And he kind of looks back at her and is like, well, then any direction is fine. Because if you don't have a direction in which you want to go, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can kind of just float. But that's... Yeah. But at some point in time, you need to pick a direction, right? Yeah. You can't just be completely...
But there's people out there who are like, oh, I'm moving to, like, Africa. Why? Oh, because something in my heart tells me that this is where I need to be. It's like, shit.
Well, I mean, it depends. Because I know a lot of people that did that as well, but the whole premise behind it was like, I want to serve people, right? Like, I'm going to Africa to serve people. Like, all right. Like, that's, at least you have a direction. Like if they were to just completely be like, I'm going to Africa. Why are you going to Africa? I don't know. Well, just something in my heart told me to go to Africa.
That's what I'm talking about. Some people make decisions like that.
And then in that case, I'd be like,
oh, shit.
Whoa, okay. Like,
some people actually make decisions like that. They're like, I don't know. It's just something in my life is just telling me I need to go towards this.
I need to change.
Like, yeah. And it's like, whoa, we're not talking about like doing that, having that kind of like so much uncertainty in your life that you're all of a sudden just like letting your emotions dictate what you do. And then the reverse being true as well, on the exact opposite side of that.
But I mean, like I said, like everything kind of goes back to this whole premise of like it's the subtle art of not giving a fuck, knowing what not to give a fuck about and what to give a fuck about, and and if you care about something, also understanding that like don't hold that value on a pedestal, right? Like always be attacking that value and being like, where is it wrong? Where like, am I open? Like it's really hard for people to hold these two beliefs in their head, like, yes, I believe in this, but at the same time, it can be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
And if people are attacking it, like, okay, like either they attack it and prove it wrong, which puts you in a position where you're like, then you have to look at it and be like, oh my goodness, this is wrong. Or they attack it as it's wrong and you talk it through, and then they're like, well, that does make sense actually. And then it just solidifies your position in that, and what that truth is in those pieces of truth within it, that like, all right, it is a little bit, it is right. Like I am on the right path towards this. So,
or you just don't fucking care at all.
Yeah. But again, I think if you just don't care at all, like that.
Yeah. Another good book to read for that is just called Apathy. It's like a book about a guy just not giving a shit about anything, but the entire book is written from him sitting on a toilet taking a shit. So yeah, it's good. What are the other two?
Okay, so the next one is Failure. Like,
Is that the last one?
No, Failure. These two as well. I didn't make any notes over here because it's essentially what everyone talks about. You got to fail yourself to the top. Like you can't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. You can't be afraid to go out there and be proven wrong. Like you have to put yourself out there. Like you have to do the actions and not be afraid of it. Because if you don't do the actions, nothing's going to happen. No change is going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Fear. Dude, so I always tell people this, and I kind of spin it. I'm like, don't be afraid to succeed.
Yeah.
Like, why are you so afraid to succeed? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, success is so easy to obtain if you just do the work.
But it kind of goes to that uncertainty. Like they're always certain that I'm not the type of person that has that successful thing. Like, and so they self-sabotage it. Like, they might have $1 million listing, but then they'll find 15 different reasons why like they won't get the deal, right? Like,
so it's interesting because I do actually kind of err on the side of like pessimism. And the reason why is because, like, I don't know, right? There is uncertainty, which I'm fine with, right?
Yeah.
I work and I live I live a life of uncertainty. Like, okay, I don't really know 100% where like the next paycheck is necessarily coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, but like I'm talking maybe like 4 or 5 down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So there's uncertainty of like people making decisions that like favor me and benefit me,
mm-hmm.
Either financially or whatever. But I err on the side of pessimism so that I never get complacent and I try not to get comfortable. Like,
yeah,
because in the event where I think I might be getting, a certain deal, whatever the case is, if I let the foot off the gas and don't try to backfill that, in the rare event that like they don't, they end up going a different direction.
That's just prudent being like, just like, yeah, like nothing's for certain, right? Like this deal isn't for certain, so I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, you're not going to be like, oh man, this deal's not for certain. I'm not going to chase it. Like the thing is that you're still going to go, and even if you get the deal or not deal, like you're not afraid of not getting it. You're going to put forth your best effort, mm-hmm. and maybe your effort falls a little short. Maybe someone kind of comes underneath you and is willing to take a loss on that deal just to get the business. Like you take that risk out there every single day, and that's essentially, what people have to do is that they have to put themselves out there in that position. I got to put myself out there in that position that when dealing with kind of marketing, half of marketing fails, so I can't be afraid of putting something out there that just doesn't go over with the public really well. Like right. You take note of that and be like, okay, that didn't work. Like that didn't work in my life. That didn't work in my business. That didn't work in my relationship. I got to take a look at that and then and maybe switch that up. But at least I tried something new.
Yeah, it's the failure success paradox.
Yeah, like
you have to go fail. And I like if somebody is starting something new, whatever it is, I hope that they fail. Like for the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Because if they can get past that like aspect of failure and when they do start succeeding, okay, great. So one, they're probably succeeding because they're not doing the same things they did previously, right? So they learn from their failures. But additionally, too, if they are having continued success, say they lull back into a state of failure, right? For whatever circumstances that might be, well, they at least have the experience of going from nothing to something now.
Yeah.
Now they can go from failure again to being successful.
Exactly.
And it like turns into like longevity with people. The percentage of people who stick around in certain aspects like that, like seriously goes up. And you know, you eventually get to a point in your life where you're like almost afraid to fail, right? And that is something that's like stifling. That's something that like drives you and keeps you going.
Yeah.
So that you don't, you know, fall back or regress or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is, you know, and no longer having a fear of failure, but like welcoming it, accepting it.
Yeah, because I mean that failure is what's going to help propel you forward in taking care of those things, and also understanding that, you know, like, you know, there, just as the world says, there's no reason to do anything. There's no reason not to do anything. Right? Like there's no reason for me to pick up, you know, to start a business. Like, but there's also no reason for me not to start a business. Like,
yeah.
I mean, the same thing. There's no reason for you to chase that deal, like with company A. But there's also no reason for you not to chase that deal with company A, like if it's out there. I mean,
that's
like,
what he's talking about. Like usually needing some like existential like crisis to like start making decisions on like spurring action or doing things. And it's kind of interesting. Like, how did you get into the point of like starting the business? Like, at what point did you decide to do that? How did you get into it? I never asked you that.
So I mean, I worked at you know, a big kind of stifling corporate company for 7 years, and I didn't like the culture. I didn't fit in, and I was reading a lot of books on you know, kind of like entrepreneurship, and I kind of always wanted to kind of work for myself anyways. Mm-hmm. And I kind of told myself that I was going to start my business by the time I was 30, and I basically went into a meeting a week before my 30th birthday with my boss. And we kind of had this whole kind of conversation where it's kind of along the lines of, you don't really want to be here, do you? And I was like, no, I don't think so. He's like, all right. And, I left that position, and, I was scared to death, like, of what I was going to do. And like, I had it in the back of my mind for another company, which failed miserably, but it kind of taught me some things about, you know, doing what you love, and, you know, doing something that you're passionate about, doing something that essentially I was doing for free anyways during that entire time. It kind of came to the point like, well, I'm doing this for free. I'm pretty good at it, which was kind of training people. I might as well do it full time and try to make a go out of it. And, you know, I love this thing called CrossFit at the time, that I wanted to do. And, you know, it's evolved into a little bit different kind of framework now. But, you know, I eventually kind of dive in and be like, well, if I'm passionate about this and I want to do this, and I want, like, I'm willing to suffer for this. Right, I'm willing to put in the long hours. I'm ready to be uncertain about it.
Right. How do you get to that do something principle where you're like, well, shit, I want to do this, but I'm not quite sure like how I should do it. Well, just fucking start doing something. Yeah. Just like, you don't have to figure out. I mean, half that chicken coop back there was like, all right, let me just put like 3 pieces of wood together. Okay, well, shit. And then half the time I think in my head, I'm like, yeah, if I had done all the parts ahead of time, and like, probably wouldn't have so many issues going back and forth, losing the tools. But you know what? I didn't know, and I didn't want to I didn't want to get stuck in the paralysis of like over engineering this thing. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna start cutting wood and putting it together and just solving the issues as they come up and learning as I go. And it's, you know, same situation.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting my MBA through through the road of hard knocks. You know,
dude. People ask me all the time, like, "Are you gonna go back to school and get your MBA?" I'm like, "Why would I do that? What do I need that for?" Yeah, like, I already know how to run a business. I already know the challenges. I face them every day. Yeah, like, I'm trying to solve them every day.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches of small business. Like, well, like I kind of look at it as like, well, don't you want to get like a degree in small business ownership and entrepreneurship? I'm like,
for what?
I'm pretty sure I have that degree.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have that degree. I mean, could I definitely learn maybe some process classes and maybe even some process lectures or just sitting on a couple webinars? I'll probably get more out of those webinars on like sales funnels and everything than I would ever out of like necessarily a 4-year degree. But I mean, the thing is that you can't be so scared of rejection that you just don't do it. Like I would have never been in here if I always just kind of sat back and I look at all those people as like, well, I really want to start this, but I never got around to it. Yeah. Oh, you were just so certain that you were going to fail that you never put yourself out there. Like
they didn't want to have to start over. They made the choice of like, oh, it's not that important.
Yeah.
My false sense of security is more important than like actually feeling happy and accomplishing something bigger than myself, But maybe who knows? Who knows what the external factors were that were like, I want to own a business. It's so cool to own a business, right? So you can walk in and tell people you own a business. Or
we have this conversation all the time. Not everyone should own a business. Not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. Like we still need people to do different jobs, and if that's what brings you happiness, and owning a business isn't part of your value system and what you want to do in life, like don't force yourself to do something that you don't want to do. Like I believe that we should all be chasing down our passions and pursuits. Like, and if your pursuit is to be the best marketer at the best marketing agency, go after it. Like, put your time in smaller agencies and work your way up to where you want to go. Like, you don't have to start your own creative agency to do that. Like, you can work within the framework that's already out there to get to that point. But
just own that, right?
Yeah.
That talks about rejection, right? You have to. That's one of the 5 like pillars things that he talks about.
He talks about rejection in a different way, though.
Yeah, well, he talks about rejection in terms of like, I can easily draw a parallel here.
Yeah.
Being conscious about rejecting the alternative ways that you can live your life.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, in order to like stand for something, you don't have to be as accepting of everything.
No. Yeah.
And that's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's weird, right?
There's like a
lot of like contradictions in this.
I love his analogy that he kind of puts in there, which is like for me to choose to be with someone, I'm essentially rejecting my need for cocaine fueled orgies. Like. I mean, like choosing something means rejecting something else, right? Like choosing honesty means rejecting bad mouthing people behind their back. Choosing friendship means rejecting all those other things.
And I think
as well.
that really does like happen every day.
Yeah.
To show appreciation, right? So if you're wondering, like, okay, does this person appreciate me?
Yeah.
Right. Well, are they confining themselves to it? Are they respecting you? Are they rejecting the alternatives that like would be harmful to you?
Yeah.
Don't get so caught up if they do. Don't give a fuck if they do. In terms of like letting it derail you from life, right? It's not saying don't give a fuck. Like you actually give a fuck to the extent where you make a choice to change your involvement with somebody, but don't give a fuck in the sense that it derails your life, right?
Yeah.
It changes the way you do things. But do people stand for you? Do you stand for something? If you just are accepting of everything, well, then you stand for nothing.
Exactly.
It's like the most simplest way to extrapolate this is, well, what kind of music do you care about? I love all music. Oh my God, fuck you. You're so fucking boring. Like, really? No.
Like, what gets you going?
Tell me you hate country. Something, please. Like, I don't care, right? Oh, I love everything. What kind of food do you like? Well, I love all food. Oh, great. Okay, I'm a little more like accepting of that. I really don't care that much about it. I actually don't fucking care anyways if somebody doesn't say these things to me. But it's just an easy example.
Yeah. I mean, I like the example he kind of goes into, which is the harder things. I kind of wish I was this way, because I kind of fall within the framework of Western society of being polite and, trying to, not necessarily offend people in certain ways, but he kind of talks about, that his wife gets dolled up for him when they go out on dates, but sometimes she misses the mark on something, and she'll come out and she'll be like, well, how do I look? And, for some reason, something just doesn't work that he feels like it. And it's not meant to be in a chauvinistic way, but she's like, well, how do I look? And he'll just say, I don't know. I just don't think it works.
It's like, babe, does this dress make my ass look fat?
Exactly.
I'm like, no, it's your ass that makes your ass look fat.
Or in reality, it might not fit well, and it's being like, yeah, you know what? That dress doesn't look very good.
All right, so here's the interesting thing is that, like, I do have, like, friends that I can be that way with.
Yeah.
And even, like, people really close to me. But the context of it is... actually, it's the same thing, right? The same thing evolves from it, but the person on the other end doesn't get offended.
Yeah.
And they're like, they put on a shirt, and they're like, so how does it look? I'm like, it looks terrible. They're like, what? Really? I'm like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. But, like, we're laughing. She goes, no, really? Really? I'm like, yeah, I mean, you look amazing, but...
The shirt doesn't work.
But then they go put something else on, and they're, like, super happy, and everything's good, and we don't even talk about it.
Exactly.
It's, but it's just funny. Like, do you have people you can have that conversation with that don't get offended?
I mean, or have you set up your framework that you're willing to say, you know what, like, if you get upset for 5 minutes, that's okay, because I'm rejecting the other side of it, which is saying, like, I'm willing to lie to you, this little white lie, like, or I'm willing to be 100% brutally honest.
Can you say, at least I'm honest?
Can you be, like, honesty? Like, his whole thing is, like, I want to be truthfully honest all the time, like, with my spouse, and I should be able to be that way with them. And he kind of talks about his time in Russia, where it's the people, in Russia are just brutally honest. If you say something stupid, they'll just call you out and say that's stupid. And they don't mean anything bad by it. They're just saying, like...
You know what? All right, so you know what I think is funny is that, like, this kind of goes back to the whole thing that, like, people that like go to Europe and they come back and they're so changed and like, oh my God, like I learned so much. It's like, well, what the fuck was your perception of everything else?
Yeah.
Like, what does that say about you? Being open to everything, right? So someone goes to Russia and they have that conversation and then someone's like, oh, that's stupid. And they're like, at first they're going to be like, oh, what?
At first it hurts your feelings.
Yeah, at first it hurts your feelings, but like you adapt to it really quick. Yeah. All of a sudden you're like, I really like these people.
But it's really liberating because they're just brutally honest with you. Like,
so
you know where they stand with them.
You get to be brutally honest too.
Yeah, but not in like a dickish way or anything. It's just like you're not being like brutally honest just to be like hurtful and mean. You're being 100% open, and like that's like. I find that kind of amazing. Like, that's actually, like, as I was kind of listening to it again, I was like, I really kind of want to be that way. Like, where I just, like...
Yeah, I think there's a way to approach it, right? It takes a little bit of practice. Instead of just, like, full bore coming in, just, like, full asshole. I was just like, yeah, that's stupid. And just walking away.
No, but see, I mean, that's the whole thing he's talking about. When he was having these conversations with people, it wasn't like they were like doing that stupid and walking away. They were just like in middle conversation. It was like, that doesn't make sense. That's stupid. Like, it's more like this, like, and then like being able to, like, there's no judgment against it. There's no like anything. It's just like,
I guess I would be that. I would be that way with people who I care about.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's somebody that, it's like
if it's someone who's going to take offense to it that you don't really care about,
exactly. Or even if they,
and then it comes down to again, it gets like, what do you care about? It's like, is being honest with that person, 100% honest with that person, like your top value? Because if so, like maybe you say that anyways and be saying like, because
how do you know that you're right in terms of the comment you're about to make, right? And all of a sudden you're having to have it your way and having to think you're right.
I mean, that's also living with uncertainty and also saying like, and if they come back at you saying like, oh, blah, blah, you just don't understand. We're like, well, what don't I understand? Like, tell me what I understand so I can be wrong about it. Like, it's having that, it's willing to be open about that. Like, and people come to me like all the time at the gym and be like, well, why don't we do this? And I'll give them an explanation. Or like, well, what do you think about this, this, and this, and this? And I'll be like, Okay, like I never thought about that way. Like
A lot of times people need to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Which, like, you kind of wish somebody would have, like, a little more blind faith. Like, just have some blind faith.
Yeah.
You don't need to see the whole staircase. Just
Yeah.
take the first step.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, you don't, like, just shut up. Come on. Have some trust.
Have
You know?
some trust, but I mean, at times, like like I don't want to be so rigid that I can't be open about it either. Like,
Yeah. I guess
be open minded to certain different styles and certain different things that
I
come
guess I'm
up.
just talking about, like, the people who are, like, who would be, like, incessantly that way, right?
I mean, if someone's fighting you at every turn and everything, and then at that point in time, you have to look at like, hey man, this might not be right for you, like, and that's okay. Like there are different things out there for everyone. You know, I'm not gonna feel hurt if you reject me because this isn't for you. You know, it kind of goes back to there. Like to stand for something, you need to reject something else. If you are a hardcore bodybuilder, you know what? Functional fitness training is probably not going to be up your alley.
Right.
Like that's just the truth of it. Like to be that, you have to reject other things.
This is so funny, like, reading through this, like, the last part of the fucking book.
Yeah.
Just seeing the context of how this person wrote it is just fucking awesome.
Yeah. Like
What does he talk about after rejection?
so after rejection,
Boundaries?
no, because he talks about boundaries a little bit in the rejection, the failures of setting boundaries with people and going through. But his last one is like what kind of holds all this stuff like together and kind of going through is the idea that we're all going to die.
Right. He
Like,
goes, we have all these issues, right? We have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this problem. Our lives are so fucking complicated. We have all this going on, and then you're dead.
yeah,
It's just like dead, and then you die.
and then you die. You have problem after problem after problem, hopefully escalating in how good they are as you go through, but in the end, you die.
So he says you have to confront that.
Yeah.
You have to like be conscious of the fact that like okay, I could die today, right?
I think it's called momentum morum, right? Like as they go through, it's keeping that piece in the back of your head,
just
like
keeping awareness.
Yeah.
Because everything else becomes inconsequential.
Yeah.
If you're not aware of that.
Like it kind of goes back to that statement I said where like there's no reason to do anything because we're all going to die. So there's no reason not to do anything because,
Right.
and I don't mean like anything like in like anything, right? Because again, shitty values, good values,
Right.
shitty people, bad, good people, kind of go through. But like in terms of, what you valuing and like what you're caring about, like if I were to go around for the next 2 years really caring about what's going on in Hollywood and reading every gossip column and every TMZ report and all that stuff, and at the end of the 2 years I die, cool.
That would suck.
That to me would suck, like just because like that's
that would be you caring too much about shit instead of like addressing the inevitability of like death.
yeah.
Like that would be a shitty way to fucking live your life.
Yeah, exactly. So like, but on the flip side of this, and I'll use a person that I heard as well, and gets worked all the time, right? Like we had this conversation yesterday. She's like getting like physically sick about getting from work, and she's just working all the time, like beyond hours that she should. She's available all the time. Like it's and at the end of it, it's just like you're doing all this, but for what purpose? There's no balance. These problems are going to be there tomorrow. You can tackle these problems tomorrow. You can tackle these things in a manner. Like there's really no reason you need to put that much stress on yourself over that, because if you keep in the back of your mind, like we only got one shot at this. Like if you only got one shot at this, why not live a full and balanced life? Do the things that you love to do while also doing the things that you need to do. Like you got to have some kind of balance. And if you want to do that and you're getting off some kind of business, like I know you said, like there are points in your life that you want to run, through business there and like work all the time. And there were points in my life with starting up this business, I needed to work for 24, 48 hours, 72 hours straight with like, you know, a couple hours of sleep. And like, I needed to do that for that time. But then at the end of that, there was a reward, and I got to relax, and I got to enjoy, and I got to enjoy that reward on the other side of it. Like, there's always going to be those pieces, but just keep that in mind. Like,
what makes you question, like, what is the meaning of like her life and how it's being shaped, right? For somebody who's necessarily like that, like, because don't get me wrong, I love working, and I'm totally fine with like working on the weekend. Or for working from 9 to 12.
But to the point that you're starting to like not take care of yourself, like
no, definitely not. Definitely not to the point where I would like sacrifice that you know.
Yeah.
I would never do that, and I try to have like this existential like belief of
we're only going through this one time. I mean,
right.
It's like the person that keeps putting off that vacation, like that they really want to do, keeps putting it off. And I find myself like.
Oh, I think about it all the time, dude.
In this position all the time as well. Like, where like I keep putting off this thing that I want to do because I have these other things and I want everything lined up in a row and I want to like have everything be like kind of perfect in a situation. I just really need to realize like there is no perfect situation. Like I need to do the things that I care about and want to do and like the values that I have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now like while I have a shot to do them and like and get that done because. In the end, you know, like going through, and if you don't confront that, you know, that's
well, what's your legacy going to be, right? That's that's what death confronts us with. Like, what are you going to be remembered for? Like, how is the world going to be different, better, or worse? Like when you're gone, you know, it's the only thing that's certain in our lives. And I don't even really think about it that much. I'm just like, all right, well. Why think about it?
Does he talk about it in this book, or was it something else I was listening to that talks about your two selves, like like yourself, like your body, physical self?
He talks about the physical self and the conceptual self.
Yeah, and then he talks
our
about
identity or how we see ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's the identity that like you see yourself and how you see yourself, and then there's the the conceptual self that you want to see the world. This is why like people put themselves build buildings so
and they call it immortality projects.
Exactly.
Right? What is your immortality project?
What is your immortality project?
So we know that the immortality project is explained by this. So we know like our physical being is going to die, right? But our legacy is like what people remember us for and like what lives like after we're gone. So basically. Like the majority of the world is working on their immortality project.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of immortality projects walking around.
Yeah.
What are they going to say at your eulogy? What are they going to say? Like, Rich Schuster was this, and this, right?
Yeah.
And it's essentially, I don't know, that's kind of like what we're working on. But because everybody would want something nice to be said to them or have people show up
But I mean, like, I actually had this conversation with my son, like, as well. And, like, I actually think it's a really good kind of thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Like this whole, having the process of being, like, that you're going to die is that, at the end of the day, like, what do you want people to stand up and say about you? Like, and are you living your life in accordance with that faction? Like, it doesn't go along with the values. No one wants to say like, oh yeah, he was a workaholic that never really poured into the relationship.
Right.
Like all he was doing was working all the time, staying up till 10 a.m. and I never really had a chance to have a date with that person. I was married to him for 20 years and we never had a date. Like no one wants that to be their legacy. Like at the same time. So like if you're in the back of your mind, like, yeah, turn off your computer at a certain time and going home and spending the time with like people that you care about and like and people that.
So that is one thing that like I can't remember where I got it from, but it gave me a true definition for me to like explain to people about like who I am as a person, and my philosophy on time management and like where I'm going to be or who I'm going to be with. I try not to multitask when I'm like in certain.
I'm a horrible multitasker.
Yeah, so
I'm a horrible multitasker.
So, and the place I'm going with that is like, all right. So if I'm with friends, or if I'm with my family, or with my girlfriend, or whatever it is, like I want to be fully present in that moment.
Yeah.
So I want to check out of, work or check out of, just other things, right? But then there's also times where I might have to go into like the work zone for like 2 or 3 weeks. I might be off the grid. So I might not be going to social events. I might not be, working out at the gym, or I might, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you just got to be okay with that. And that's my balance. Like sometimes I'm like, all right, I got 2 weeks ahead of me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like my work ethic can change because my amount of work needed is going to be flatlined.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it might spike.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it might be low versus somebody else has a straight trajectory line. Like it might even out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So somebody who might be on a straight trajectory in terms of like time that they have to spend working may not understand like the
fluctuation.
Spikes, the peaks and valleys of it. So I definitely try to compartmentalize like how actively like I'm involved.
Yeah.
In, like being aware and present with people.
But I mean, like in your own way, you show up and you do those things because like you're like, yeah, like my values are of like when I'm there, I'm going to be there. Like I'm going to be like
right. It's like building legacy.
Yeah.
So how does he ends it by so he talking about something beyond ourselves, right?
Yeah. So he kind of ends it in this whole thing where like he confronts his death. He gets onto a ledge. He's kind of like overlooking, and his body's just kind of shaking as he's like 3 feet from the ledge of Cape Town, kind of looking over it. And he comes back through, and when confronted with that, like he sees this guy. The guy says, "Are you okay?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I'm great." And the guy's like, "Okay." And like it's
like a mediocre experience of some guys like about to.
He like the writer has this existential moment of they're kind of thinking about everything and kind of like putting everything into framework, and this guy's just reaction is just like okay, and I feel like that's kind of been the process that I've actually been on, is kind of like I'm learning all these things about myself and kind of putting myself, and when I have these conversations with people, they're like, okay, that sounds cool. I'm just like, yeah, it is cool. And it's just, some people will get it, some people won't, but I mean, that's just, that's kind of what's driving me. And that's my personal, like what I'm choosing to give a fuck about is trying to be the best person that I can now. Like I'm not perfect. I make my own issues all the time. Like I have my own issues, but I'm trying. I'm constantly searching out where I'm wrong and where I can be better and where I can find. And I love this book for that reason. Like it constantly tells me like, yeah, like you're still wrong now. You may be a little less wrong, but you're still wrong. Like there's still more out there. There's still more things to learn, more things to kind of grasp and conceptualize.
Yeah, I think my final sounding off, my takeaway. There's a lot of what is healthy, what is unhealthy in terms of like actions, in terms of relationships, love, time spent.
Yeah.
How well is each interaction that you're having with somebody? Where's your mind going based on like things that happen to you on a daily basis? Somebody cuts you off, like do you get pissed off? Or someone doesn't let you out of the parking lot, do you get pissed off? Would you be pissed if you dropped 1 penny out of 99?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
And that represents
that 1 second,
12 minutes of a day.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't give a fuck about something so small and significant that happens.
Yeah. You got a finite amount of fucks to give. Like,
yeah, dude.
Don't give them away for nothing. The best line of this entire book comes from The Wire, and it's when the detective comes up to McNulty and is like, that's what you give for giving a fuck about something when it wasn't your time to give a fuck about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love the fact that he's looking at he's addressing the fact that like, all right, you're always gonna have problems. So problems are never gonna go away. But if you don't know how to solve a problem, just fucking do something.
Yeah.
Right? When you solve one problem, it's gonna get better. Be conscious of the fact that like happiness comes from learning how to solve your issues, not avoiding them. Addressing the fact that like it's okay to reject certain things from your life and do it with grace. It just goes on and on and on. I could read this book every month, and like somehow reground myself.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that we brought it up because it's things that I talk about every day.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Anyways, I rate this book easily a 9 out of 10 for me.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. My first 9.
First 9. So we're gonna sound off. I'm gonna leave it with this quote from this book going through. A man that knows everything learns nothing. Go out there and read books. We're going to go ahead and put the next book that we're going to go over in the comment section below in the summary. We'll put that book out there and try to get back to you guys within 2 weeks.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Sorry to all the fans.
Yeah. I know we slacked on this one, but we'll get back on schedule since it's going to be us two and maybe another one or two more. But it'll be us anchoring this, I think.
There we go. That's it.
He's D. Guys. I'm Rich. Signing out for Bro Book Club.
Peace.